Welcome to Sports from the Couch.
I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
With your host, Mike Mercado.
Players cannot stand him. Coaches cannot stand him. Most importantly, the fans can't stand him.
Brought to you by Mercado Airwaves.
I'm gonna say it once, and hopefully I'm wrong, but it's a disaster waiting to happen.
That is so bad, that is absolutely brutal.
Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. It is Week 17 in the NFL. We have made it to the finish line of the regular season, but we have so many questions unanswered on who is going to make the playoffs, who is going to be in what seed, and who is going to win each game this week. But before we get to all that, we have to take care of some housekeeping notes, guys, because it is Bears and Packers week, and we are so excited. So before we do all that, before we go crazy, take care of our sponsors. Make sure you're following us all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and the show's on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. You can become a producer of the show at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves, the home to our interviews, ad-free and before anybody else with athletes and celebrities. That's patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Visit us at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. We have swag, guys. Look good in 2021. That's teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Play video games with us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network. And if you would like to keep up to date with everything we're doing on the podcast network, from the true crime show, the pop culture show, the interviews, and everything in between, follow us on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves.
Isn't it funny that in a season like no other, history would repeat itself? A roller coaster season comes down to one single game. Win and punch your ticket to the playoffs. But who's trying to stop us? The Packers. That's right. The Cheeseheads to the north, led by Magnum QB. So now the so-called best team in the NFC thinks they can come into Soldier Field and beat the same team they won against in Week 12? Nah, bruh. Breaking news. This isn't the same Bears team. Since losing to Green Bay in November, Mitch and the boys have put up at least 30 a game and have put the monsters of the Midway in control of their own postseason destiny. These monsters are focused. These monsters are determined. These monsters are hungry. And cheese is on the menu.
Let's go. That's our boy, Tony Gill, friend of the show. Follow him on Twitter at the Tony Gill. This was on the NBC Sports Chicago Twitter page at NBCS Chicago. Tony's been doing some awesome voiceover work, and man, that boy got us hyped for this game. But before we get to that, we got to take care of some other stuff first before we get into the huge matchup that is Bears versus Packers, and I'm a little excited. Before we make our picks for the final week in the NFL, let's go ahead and kind of try to make some sense out of this mess that is the NFL playoff picture. We're going to go visit our friends over at Fansided at NFLSpinZone.com. Cody Williams had this article up kind of breaking down everything that needs to happen for every team in a playoff race, whether it comes to seeding, whether it comes to even being alive next week to try and climb the mountaintop and win the Super Bowl this February. But before we can get to that moment, we need to find out which 7 teams in the AFC and which 7 teams in the NFC will be playing these coming up weeks. And we'll start off with the Arizona Cardinals and what they need to do to get to the playoffs. And of course, all our friends here in the city of Chicago, the beautiful city of Chicago, will definitely be breaking down Bears versus Packers and everything it means while we're doing our confidence picks. But before that, let's go ahead and take care of this first. The Arizona Cardinals, of all the NFL playoff scenarios in play for Week 17, the Cardinals might have the easiest. Their only chance at the postseason is a win on the road against the Rams, which makes it favorable that LA is without Jared Goff, among others. And yeah, there are some other guys who might not be playing for the LA Rams. So the Cardinals, they win and they're in. It's a big thing for the Rams to try to get themselves into a playoff spot. And honestly, they're a team that if they make the playoffs, they're a dangerous team. They have big play possibilities. They have a quarterback that can make anything on the run, and it's a fun matchup for Arizona. Of course, For the LA Rams, I mean, everything coming to a head right now. They're going to have a good schedule. They're going to have a good record because of their schedule, but I mean, they might miss it, and it all becomes down to an injury to their quarterback. So we'll see how this plays out, but Arizona win, and they're in. Let's go to the Baltimore Ravens. It's wild that the Ravens went from the top seed in the AFC last year to fighting for a wildcard berth, but here we are. If Baltimore wins at Cincinnati, they're in. They can also get in if either the Browns or the Colts lose, should the Ravens to the Bengals. So I don't want to give it too much of a spoiler alert, but I'm putting most of my confidence points on the Baltimore Ravens beating the Cincinnati Bengals. If for nothing else, they need to win. This is survival. This isn't just padding the stats or trying to get right. You have to be right because it's now or never. Let's go to the Bills. Let's see what they have for them. All signs point to the Bills being able to secure the number 2 seed in the AFC. With a win at home against the Dolphins, they'll accomplish just that. But they can lose to Miami, a team fighting for an NFL playoff berth in their own right, and still get the 2 seed if the Steelers, resting a number of starters themselves, lose at Cleveland. So again, Buffalo, much more just playing for positioning. It's Miami that has a lot to go for. So we'll get to the Miami thing in just a little bit as I look through this list to make sure that, yes, we will get to Miami in just a second. Let's talk a little bit about the Chicago Bears. Thanks to Mitchell Trubisky, Bill Lazor, and Matt Nagy, whatever the hell they're doing, the Bears are still alive. And to get in, they either need to beat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers at Soldier Field or have the Cardinals lose to the Rams on Sunday. So this is a very tough one. It's the road with less obstruction, right? The easiest way to the White House, as they were saying all of November. For the Bears to get to the playoffs, they're going to need some help, or they could take care of it themselves. And we'll talk about that when we actually break down the game that's coming up at 3:25 in Chicago. But this is the moment, right? This is what every athlete, every person who has a competitive spirit wants. It's your rival. It's the ultimate test. It's your journey coming to the final moment that decides the rest of your life. And a lot of guys, a lot of people on this Bears team in this organization are facing that mortality right now against Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, what comes up of it. But for the Bears to make it to the playoffs, win and you're in. Or if you fall to Green Bay, you need some help from the LA Rams to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Let's go to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland got a gift from the NFL gods as the Steelers will be resting a litany of starters in Week 17. If the Browns win, they're in. But they can also make the playoff if the Titans lose and either the Ravens, Colts, or Dolphins win, should they somehow lose at home to the Steelers. So Cleveland has a really good shot of making the playoffs, much more than the Baltimore Ravens. They just need a break here or a break there if they can take care of business. But like we've been saying, the Steelers are resting players, so I think he'll win this game. We'll get to that in just a little bit about my confidence picks. But I definitely think that regardless of how this plays out, I think the Browns have a really good chance of just getting in without much interference. I think Pittsburgh is the type of team that they don't really care. They know they're not getting home field, so at the very least, they just let's get in and let's just get healthy. Let's be rested. So I'm going to go with Cleveland, and that's how you see if the Browns are making it into this crazy playoff push. We got to talk about them, guys. We're going to talk about a few NFC East teams. The Dallas Cowboys, against all odds. The Cowboys can still win the NFC East. They first need to go on the road against the Giants and win. After that, they would need Washington to lose in Philadelphia in prime time for Dallas to take the division and clinch a playoff berth. It's the worst division in football that has a lot of different talented people amongst them. We'll see how it plays off in the NFC East. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but in order for the Cowboys, quote-unquote, America's team to make it, they need a road win against the Giants, and they need Washington to lose in Philadelphia for them to make the playoffs. Let's go for all you Chicago fans. This is an interesting one. What needs to happen for the Green Bay Packers to make this an important game? Is it semi-important? Is it all the way important? There's a lot of things. You would say selfishly, I would say individually that the Packers need to do in this game that helps their guys. But as a whole, I don't know. Let's talk about what FanSided had to say. The number 1 seed in the NFC is still at play, but the Packers are in their driver's seat. If they win on Sunday against Chicago on the road, they lock up home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Green Bay can also earn that spot if the Seahawks were to lose at San Francisco. So this is that scenario for the Chicago Bears. And I will look on the schedule really fast just to see when Seattle and San Francisco will be playing. So Seattle and San Francisco obviously will be playing at the same time the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers will be playing. So unless something happens really early on in the game, something happens on halftime, I think the Packers are probably going to play this entire game. So it's going to be a tough one. So all the Packers need to do to clinch their number one seed and a bye week is to beat the Chicago Bears. Tough one for Bears fans, but both teams are playing for something. Really interesting. It's been a while since that's happened. Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts. Though an outside shot, the Colts can still win the AFC South if they beat the Jaguars and the Titans lose to the Texans. But even if Tennessee wins, Indianapolis could earn a wild card berth with a win and a loss by either the Ravens, the Dolphins, or the Browns. So some of the same culprits in this scenario, but a lot of moving pieces. The Colts' easiest way to the playoffs, beat the Jaguars. Titans lose to the Texans. Otherwise, they're looking for a wild card berth, and they're going to need a loss by the Ravens, Dolphins, or the Browns. And speaking of the Dolphins, probably the most intriguing team in the playoff push right now. While Miami can't win the AFC East anymore, they still have a good shot at making it into the postseason. Their NFL hopes will be realized if they win in Buffalo or if the Ravens, the Colts, or the Browns lose on Sunday. So again, Buffalo playing for something. You're not just going to walk up there and play the string team. You know, you're not going to beat the B-Bombers. So, I mean, Miami has a tough task ahead of them. But if they win, they're in. And again, that's what a lot of teams have put themselves in that position. That's what you hope for, is that it's in your hands. So the Miami Dolphins, winning, you're in, or you need a loss from the Ravens, Colts, or the Browns. The Saints, another team in play for the number one seed, right? Which is crazy all season long. But they not only need a win, they need a little bit of help as well. The Saints' victory at Carolina must be coupled with a Packers loss and a Seahawks win for them to earn the top seed in the NFC. So they're in play. They have the toughest road to the White House as the number one seed. But I like New Orleans kind of getting right. They're not going to have their running backs. And I don't know. Carolina's a tough matchup. Carolina's a tough matchup. So that's going to be a fun game, but a lot of implications for the number one seed and who travels where in that game. We said we had to keep talking about them. The New York Giants. It's the inverse of what Dallas is facing on Sunday. The Giants will win the NFC East if they win at home against the Cowboys, while also having the football team lose on Sunday Night Football. So some moving pieces here. Again, somebody has to lose, somebody has to win. The NFC East is just an entire mess, and we're here for it. The LA Rams are in a tough spot as they will play Week 17 without Goff. But with a win at home against Arizona, or a Bears loss to the Packers on Sunday, Los Angeles will return to the postseason. So winning you're in, awesome. You don't have your quarterback that's been to the Super Bowl. But the team that's right on your heels is playing their division rival with arguably the MVP of the season in the Bears and the Packers. I think the Rams are sitting pretty good. They need to win their game, so we'll see. But that is how the LA Rams make the playoffs. And we're down to the final few teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are locked into either number 2 or number 3 seed in the AFC. And as mentioned, aren't totally in control of their own destiny, which no team ever wants to be in. A shorthanded win at the Browns and a Bills loss to the Dolphins at home would give Pittsburgh the second slot. Pittsburgh losing or both teams winning means the Steelers are the number 3 seed. So it looks like the Steelers have an idea of where they're going to be at these playoffs. It's just determining what they do the next round, if they could get to the next round. So we'll keep our eyes to see what Pittsburgh falls in the playoff bracket. The Seahawks could potentially get the number 1 seed in the NFC as well, guys. They first need to win on the road against the 49ers and would also need both Green Bay and New Orleans to lose in their respective matchups. So every fan of the Seahawks, of Russell Wilson, are Bears fans and Panther fans today as the Seahawks look to try to get the number 1 seed. We'll be interested to see where they lock up that 1, 2, and 3 because we know it's going to be Seattle, New Orleans, and Green Bay 1, 2, 3. Where that ends up, really, really interesting. A team that we all thought was going to be there isn't quite in there, but in the playoffs nonetheless. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs have already locked up a playoffs berth, but with a win against the Falcons on Sunday, they would lock up the number 5 seed and a favorable wildcard round matchup against the NFC East champion. Very interesting. Tom Brady still won't win a division, still won't get a number 1 seed, but still will find a way to have a very favorable matchup in the playoffs. So Tampa Bay looking pretty in the playoff scenario. We have the Tennessee Titans. It's almost assured that the Titans get a playoff spot. They will clinch the AFC South and the number 4 seed with a win over the Texans, or with a Colts loss to the Jaguars. However, Tennessee would also clinch a playoff berth as a wild card if the Ravens, Colts, or Dolphins lose. So even though they had a bad game in Green Bay and it didn't look all that pretty, Tennessee has put themselves in a position where more than likely we will see them in the playoff bracket, and we'll see if Derrick Henry can continue on this crazy season that seems to slow down a little bit at Lambeau Field, but keep our eyes on that. And finally, the Washington football team. Washington can secure the NFC East title on Sunday Night Football if they simply win on the road against the Eagles. With a loss, however, they're out of the playoffs. So plain and simple, guys, for all you Washington fans, you're winning, you win. You lose, and you're done. So very, very interesting stuff. That is the playoff picture scenario. Hopefully it makes sense. If not, it will be making sense as the afternoon continues to go on. But with that, guys, it is time to make our Week 17, the final week of the regular season in the 2020 season, one of the craziest seasons of all time. We make our confidence picks right now here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. And we start off with our first matchup. I am putting 16 confidence points on the Baltimore Ravens beating the Cincinnati Bengals. Everything is on the line for Baltimore. I think they take care of business. I'm putting 16 confidence points on Lamar and his Ravens. I am putting 15 confidence points on the Indianapolis Colts beating the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm putting 14 confidence points on the Seattle Seahawks beating the San Francisco 49ers. I have 13 confidence points on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Atlanta Falcons. I have 12 confidence points on the Tennessee Titans beating the Houston Texans in Texas. I have 11 confidence points on Minnesota beating the Detroit Lions in an NFC North matchup. I'm putting 10 confidence points on Buffalo beating Miami in Buffalo. Should be interesting how that all plays out for the Miami Dolphins in the playoff scenario. I'm putting 9 confidence points on the Arizona Cardinals to beat the LA Rams, making things a little difficult for the Chicago Bears. I am putting 8 confidence points on the Dallas Cowboys to beat the New York Giants and put themselves in a position to win the NFC East. I am putting 7 confidence points, I guess, on New Orleans over Carolina. I mean, they don't have their running backs, but they still have Drew Brees. They're still playing for something. Carolina could put points up. They're not going to have Christian McCaffrey. So, I mean, Samuel could still go off, but they could still be in check even with Teddy Bridgewater. So I'll go with the Saints in that matchup. I'm putting 6 confidence points on Cleveland over Pittsburgh. I think at the end of the day, one is playing for their playoff life. The other is just trying to put the pieces back together before they kick off the first playoff game next week. So I'm going with the Browns and 6 confidence points in that matchup. I have 5 confidence points on the Vegas Raiders beating the Denver Broncos. 4 confidence points on the Chargers, quote-unquote, upsetting the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City isn't playing anybody, and the Chargers have enough good players on their team, and obviously a lot of guys still playing for something for next year. So I'm going with the Chargers in that matchup. Before we get to Chicago and Green Bay, let's finish this up. I'm putting 3 confidence points in that game, but we'll break that down in just a second. Let's jump down really fast. I'm putting 2 confidence points on Philadelphia beating Washington, which means Dallas will win the NFC East division. And finally, in my upset, because they've done it all, I'm putting 1 confidence points on the Jets beating New England because Bill Belichick is smarter than all of us, and he wants a better draft pick. Let's jump on to Green Bay versus Chicago. Look it. There's not a lot to be said. We know what needs to happen if you're a Bears fan. We know what needs to happen if you're a Packers fan. Let's talk about how this works out for the Packers. Plain and simple, you do what you did last time and you put it on them and you never make it close. You use your explosiveness when it comes to Devontae Adams, when it comes to Tanya, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. You make Mitch Trubisky have happy feet. You make him make rush decisions, dumb decisions, and you win this game pretty handily. The other way that this goes out is the Bears stick around. They don't let Aaron Rodgers have all the big plays. And come halftime, if you're lucky, the Packers know where they stand in the NFC playoff picture. I think Aaron Rodgers has, simply by playing today, has stamped himself as the MVP favorite, at the very least. Maybe not unanimous, maybe not a lock, but at least the favorite to win the MVP. The team, if they know they're seeding, at some point, they're going to want to take guys out. Because you're going to play next week or you're not. It's one of the two, right? So if you know you're playing next week, you might take some of these dudes out. If you're not playing next week, maybe you hold some guys a little longer, some guys a little shorter, but you're messing with the lineup. Let's talk a little bit about some cynicism, though. If you're the Green Bay Packers, right? Maybe you let the Bears into the playoffs. Because let me ask you this. Out of all the playoff teams that will be in this bracket in the NFC, if you're Aaron Rodgers, if you're the Green Bay front office, if you're the Green Bay fan base, who's the one team you would love to see in a wild card round, in the divisional round, in the playoffs? Of course it would be Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, Mitchell Trubisky, and that Bears team. Of course it is. It's the easiest matchup. It's the best matchup for you. What's dangerous about that, though, we've seen in football, is when you try to play the matchups, when you try to get something that's favorable to you, something kind of implodes in your face, right? That's what this defense can be. But what have we been saying all season? I love this defense. I love a lot of pieces of it. I love some of the players of it. It's a defense that likes to talk a lot through the media, through social media as well. Okay, this is that moment now, guys. This isn't a challenge. This isn't me giving you criticism. This is me and your entire fan base, the entire media industry, the entire football world is watching you play against the baddest man on the planet. This is that matchup. This is what we always talk about. Look I've seen Ray Lewis take on Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. And while maybe Manning and Brady's teams got the upper hand many times, you never felt like you were out of it with those defenses. Same thing with Seattle. So let me ask this. Why do you feel so about this matchup? Because you've seen the decline. So you're worried that it's going to show up one more time. Because you've seen Aaron Rodgers, when all the chips are on the line, tear up better defenses. It's not a fun matchup. It is all the anxiety every Bears fan has hated, and it is everything every football fan has wanted to see. This is what football is, guys. We forget about it sometimes in this city because the Bears are either 12-4, 13-3, or 6-10, 7-9, and it doesn't even matter. But when you're in a playoff push, a playoff hunt, this is what it feels like. And when you're not one of the dominant teams, this is when you have all the questions, when you have all the doubts. There are plenty of doubts to have. Do I trust Matt Nagy to continue to feed the ball to David Montgomery? No, because during the games when he's balling out, they're not. They still find ways to get the ball off of his hands. Do I trust Mitchell Trubisky to not make a bad throw in the red zone that gives the team the ball again? No, because he does it all the time, even when he's balling out. These are reasons why you should have a little bit of doubt. You should have a little pit in your stomach when it comes to this matchup 325 in the lakefront. But this is the National Football League. These guys are playing for their lives. We've been saying it for weeks now. But it has come to a head right now. If you're Mitchell Trubisky, if you're Matt Nagy, if you're Bill Lazor, if you're Ryan Pace, hell, if you're Bears ownership, this solves everything one way or another. If you get blown out at home with everything on the line, everybody's job on the line, no need for more motivation, everybody needs to go. But if you win, if you play a good game, if it's competitive, and you find a way to sneak into the playoffs, everybody comes back. And we're going to Sizzler, baby, because you got to keep your jobs. And I hate advocating for people to lose their jobs. But the fact remains that they made bad decision after bad decision. And they found the way to get themselves in a position where they can, I'm not going to say make it all right, but they can start making things right for this organization and make the train go in the right direction for the first time in a long time. They have everything it takes. But there's so many questions that they don't want to have to answer in the offseason. So they want to prolong this. How many years does Ryan Pace have on their contract? Because Brad Biggs reported, one of the best insiders in all of football, that nobody quite knows how many years this man has left on his contract. Are you going to give Mitch Trubisky a new contract? Are you going to franchise Mitchell Trubisky? Do you just sign him from a 1-year deal to a 1-year deal? What is the whole point of this moving forward? These are all questions they have to answer. You don't have to worry about one of these questions if you do one job. The part of your team that you invested money and draft capital to, step up and beat Aaron Rodgers. You could want Mitch Trubisky to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. That would be wonderful. You could want David Montgomery to run for 100 yards, touching the ball 23 times and has a touchdown. You can want all that. Allen Robinson, 7 targets, 100 yards and a touchdown. You can want all that. It means nothing, though. It means absolutely nothing. Because the other guy on the other side of the field who's been beating your ass for over a decade can nullify all that. So it's up to Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks and Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller. It's up to Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn, Nichols. It's up to these guys. They get paid. They're the ones who are the heroes. They're the ones who do the most talking. They need to do this. They need to win this game. They need to step up. This is their moment. And Bears fans are going to fixate on what happens on offense, what they should. Because if your offense is just inept, then it doesn't matter what your defense does. But if your offense does just enough to keep you in this game, this defense has no excuse. So I'm putting it on them this week. You want to be in the playoffs? You want to be about that? You want us to talk about you like that? And they know who that is. We all know who that is. Show it to us. Not only for me as a fan, but me as a critic. And I'm not even a critic. I've never played. These guys are all ballers. These guys are all monsters. I get that. But when somebody tells me, Michael, you have an opportunity to be heard from millions and millions, make a good point, be passionate, make them come back, I try my best to do that. Sometimes I deliver, sometimes I don't. But you can never doubt that I have came up to this moment with the best I have. I expect that from everybody in the profession, especially when they're well paid and when everything is on the line and your teammates' jobs are on the line and the ownership has made it perfectly known that people's heads will roll. Show us now. And with all that, it's time I make my prediction. And guys, I'm picking the Chicago Bears. I'm putting 3 confidence points on the Chicago Bears beating the Green Bay Packers. At the end of it, I think luck might go the Bears' way. I think Green Bay will have an idea of what they have going on for themselves in the playoffs. I think Aaron Rodgers will lock up the MVP. I think the Bears win this game 34-24, a 10-point Bears lead. Don't let the score fool you. This is going to be late into the game. I don't know if it's going to be all that exciting. Hell, I'm going to change that. 31-24, the Chicago Bears win this game and make the NFC playoffs. Woo, guys, it was a heavy-duty episode. Let's run these confidence points back one last time. And if you missed it, make sure you go jump back to the beginning of the episode to see how every one of your teams can make the playoffs or miss the playoffs. But let's run this bad boy down for the last time in the NFL regular season for 2020. I have 16 confidence points on the Baltimore Ravens over the Cincinnati Bengals. I am putting 15 confidence points on the Indianapolis Colts over the Jacksonville Jaguars. 14 confidence points on the Seattle Seahawks beating the San Francisco 49ers. I'm putting 13 confidence points on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Atlanta Falcons. 12 confidence points on the Tennessee Titans beating the Houston Texans. 11 confidence points on the Minnesota Vikings beating the Detroit Lions. 10 confidence points in the Buffalo Bills beating the Miami Dolphins. 9 confidence points on the Arizona Cardinals beating the LA Rams without Jason Goff. I am putting 8 confidence points on Dallas beating the New York Giants, setting the Dallas Cowboys up for a big surprise later on in the night. I am putting 7 confidence points on New Orleans beating Carolina, subject to change. Who will New Orleans have in the starting lineup? Carolina, divisional matchup, very interesting. But for right now, I am putting 7 confidence points on the Saints. I have 6 confidence points on the Cleveland Browns beating the beat-up Pittsburgh Steelers. I am putting 5 confidence points on the Las Vegas Raiders beating the Denver Broncos. 4 confidence points on the Chargers, quote-unquote, upsetting the Kansas City Chiefs, who are basically resting everybody. I put 3 confidence points, and Lord help me, on the Chicago Bears beating the Green Bay Packers and solidifying themselves as the number 7 seed in the NFC playoffs. We'll see if the Bears get a little lucky tonight on Sunday afternoon football. I am putting 2 confidence points on the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Washington football team, meaning the Dallas Cowboys will win the NFC East. And finally, I'm putting a point on the Jets beating New England. Bill Belichick is smarter than all of us. He wants a better draft pick, and the Jets are stupid. So go ahead and put that as a win. But that is it, guys. That is Week 17. That is all the playoff scenarios. That has been the 2020 regular season in COVID for the NFL here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. Thank you guys so much for making us a part of your Sunday, your Thursday, your Monday, sometimes a Tuesday, sometimes a Saturday, and even a Wednesday this season. We really appreciate it. Make sure you guys let us know who makes the playoffs, who misses the playoffs, which team did you get right, which team did you get wrong, how did you do this season? Guys, I picked over 67% correct in these confidence points. That's more than half. I'm so proud, and thank you guys for being part of that journey. Let me know your thoughts on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. The show's on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. That'll do it for us on this edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Don't forget, you can follow us all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and the show's on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. You can become a producer of the show at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves, the home to our interviews, ad-free and before anybody else, with athletes and celebrities. That's patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Visit us at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. We have swag, guys. Look good in 2021. That's teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Play video games with us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network. And if you would like to keep up to date with everything we're doing on the podcast network, from the true crime show, the pop culture show, the interviews, and everything in between, follow us on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. Enjoy all the games. Have a wonderful start to your 2021. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.